What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and this is the Early Bird Artcast, and I've got my faithful buddy here, Mr. Russ of Comic Book Black Belt. How you doing, man?
Oh, fine, thanks. Getting there. Good to
Awesome.
see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find you, sir?
You can find me on russleach.com, comicbookblackbelt.com. You can find me here on YouTube as Comic Book Black Belt. And it would be really good if you signed up to my email list at any of those places.
Yes, absolutely. That'd be really good. Definitely do that. You know where to find me, DonkeyJawProjects.com and Marsh Comics on various social medias. And today I wanted to talk about there's been a discussion going on kind of in the background on the Discord, on our AAA Creators Discord, which you can find a link in the description after I do this because I forgot to put the links in. I'm just realizing. But you can find them on most of my other videos on the link tree. But, you know, on the Discord and in some Facebook Messenger groups and things like that, there's been some discussion, and probably maybe you guys have been having discussion as well in your various groups who are concerned with YouTube about this. And we're not. This whole video isn't all about this. This is in general. It's going to be more of a general video, but we've been discussing about this whole thing with the FTC and COPA regulations that are going to be coming on YouTube in the beginning of next year, 2020. And it's been, you know, a little bit crazy and maybe scary for some. But, you know, I think I personally have looked into it, and it seems to me like things are going to be okay. We don't have to panic. As per usual, usually everything seems to be crazy, and then you look at stuff and find out it's not so bad. But, you know, basically I wanted to talk about in general, though, what happens when, you know, the unexpected happens, because when we are trying to do anything, you know, you get these goals and this dream and this vision. You want to make, you know, your comic book or whatever it is you want to create or just do, you know, maybe you just want to save up for something and buy a new this or that or something. Who knows? There could be like a million things you want to do. And always there's things that get in the way. Life gets in the way. And sometimes it's pretty serious stuff, you know. Sometimes there's like a death in the family, or, you know, somebody's just, you know, having trouble or whatever. There's all kinds of things that can happen. I mean, I've definitely had a bunch of things happen throughout the years, and you know, but I've also always kept with having creative goals and ambitions, and sometimes it kind of has stopped me, but not for long. And sometimes, you know, I've been able to push through. And I'm just curious, you know, have you ever had a time, Russ, when something unexpected has happened, maybe kind of pretty serious, and it's kind of stopped you from doing what you wanted to do creatively with your project and stuff?
Yeah. This year, my mum died.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, my dad died.
Wow.
And the previous year, my wife's mother died. And I was very close to her as well. Yeah, it stops you in your tracks. And I was stopped in my tracks for this is probably going to sound awful, but it was several days. You'd think, oh God, that would stop you in your tracks for weeks or months. But it's like, and this is a conversation we've come back to before about why you're doing your art, or what the creative process is about. And for me, part of it is making money. I have to be creative, but as part of my job to earn the money to keep us in a house and that kind of stuff, all those kind of boring life things. So yes, it did stop me in my tracks for a few days. And also I was concerned for the health of my wife a little while ago, and she's actually, everything is really cool. Everything's fine. But you know, you're run through tests and all kinds of terrible things, and worrying about that kind of stuff, that stops you in your tracks. But I couldn't be stopped for too long. It could only be a couple of days where I kind of gazed at my navel and and had internal thought processes, and then I had to get on. And for me, that was a hard truth to it, because I had no choice. I had to get on and continue the work, continue servicing my clients, and continue making money, and try and block one off from the other. And in some ways, that's a bit of a life lesson, I suppose. But whether you're wanting to do it professionally and you have to do it for money, or whether it's a personal project, any of these things, the creative process comes from within. It's a spark of something inside, and in some ways, that creative process is healing, because it's letting you develop, it's letting you push forward, it's seeing purpose in what you're doing and your life to a degree, as well as the other purposes. Obviously, the most important thing being family. And most of the time, the things that stop you in your tracks are when it's to do with family. So, tragic things like deaths and what have you, but all kinds of stuff can stop you, like having to rush out and buy a cooker because yours has broken down, or, all kinds of silly things can happen. But I think the creative process does a lot of healing for you. So it's important to get back on it as quickly as possible, wherever possible.
Yeah. 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 It's crazy how many different things, dang, my notifications are loud on my phone. How many different things can kind of slow us down and or stop us, or have a potential of stopping us. You mentioned, like, even, there's a lot of family things, and those are the worst ones, obviously. And then there's also just things like, I mean, for me, for a while, it's been kind of something on my car breaking down that I have to either try to find a way to fix, or, pay for somebody to fix or whatever. And then I don't have money, and that kind of thing. And it can take a chunk out of your time.
Sorry, it's my phone.
That's all right. Both of our phones are. So, there's a lot of things that can stop us. And then there's things like, the whole world changing on the internet YouTube site.
Yeah.
And, so the thing is I think there are some things we can do to navigate through. And I like what you brought up. One thing I realized, because there was some really serious things that I went through, I guess a few years ago. I mean, it seems like there's things that are always looming, but some pretty serious things, and they were family oriented, and at times in my past, I would let that stop me, but I was actually doing the 100 Days of Making Comics one time when this happened. And, I did I think I did a perfect run that time, or close to it. Even still, when some pretty disastrous things were happening. And luckily the things that I thought were disastrous turned out, for the better. But, one thing that I realized during that time was, I mean, as much as I do need to probably stop a lot of things and attend to whatever it is, still doing that half an hour every day was therapeutic. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
for this half an hour, I'm not thinking about my problems, and I'm thinking about what I'm doing at hand. And there is something therapeutic about it. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So, to me, creative projects actually can help you through the hardest times. So I personally don't ever stop creative stuff anymore, unless there's just stuff that, like, physically makes me not be able to do it or whatever. But I think there are, that was like kind of I think the first point I wanted to really make was, having good habits, or a good routine. To me, that's a big key to, kind of navigating through these kind of things. If you know what your goals and plans are, and you're working on something specific, and you have that set routine, it's actually harder to not do it sometimes, you know.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is. I agree. I agree. And like I was saying, especially with it being professional, you have no choice. You have to get on. Um, but discipline is a big part of it.
mhm,
Pushing yourself to work. But yeah, good habits, and like you're saying, with the 100 days of comics, it's almost like you've declared that you're going to do something, and it becomes a personal promise, if you like. You've got to uphold what you said you're going to do. Um, I'm a big believer in doing what you say you're going to do, at least to the best of your ability. There's always going to be some times that you get caught out, um, and so it's kind of like a forced habit there. And I think the 100 days of comics thing is a great thing. I haven't got involved yet. I suppose I ought to at some point, especially if I am actually drawing every day.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a commitment, and that having those good habits, I think you're right. I think that works really well. But you never know what's gonna you never know what's gonna come around the corner. So you've got to be ready, as in personally ready to continue. I think
Mm,
this whole copper thing, for instance, from my perspective, I've already marked my Ben 10 videos as for kids simply because of the advisory notice. I haven't marked the rest of it. The rest of it's I'm gonna stay as adult. Um, Even though lots of my work obviously is recognizable Marvel characters. And actually, a lot of the videos I've seen, a lot of the information that I've seen since it's all come out, it's a lot more nuanced than it's being portrayed. YouTube has been quite blunt about it, but actually, there's a lot of data. I think with the video I dropped you this morning,
mhm,
where there is actually, and I've seen a couple of legal videos. Again, this is not legal advice. None of us are legal entities or professionals, but Copper or is the FTC. They definitely appreciate that there is a middle ground,
mhm,
and they're not going after everybody. They're going after big channels that are going to be taking the Michael, as it were, that are pushing too hard, along with all those things that YouTube were doing, going away and getting information about kids that were using YouTube, even though they weren't supposed to be doing it. Um, it seemed to me that YouTube really are the people that have dropped everybody in it because they were operating dishonestly by capturing that kind of data when they suggested that those children would not be on the platform, and then even though they said they wouldn't be on the platform, then going away and offering that information to advertisers. So they're obviously trying to play both sides, which is a bit naughty, to be honest. But I don't. The FTC aren't after everybody who draws online or draws a comic character or makes animation or I don't know does a review about Lego or whatever. They really are after those people that are focusing on kids, and then focusing that because of that being able to advertise and getting the revenue from the advertising. And then the $42,000 thing is also an absolute extreme, and there's apparently it works on a multiplier of how much money you've earned from your video via advertising, all that kind of stuff. So it's not the apocalypse that it first appeared to be. And with many problems that come at you when you're creating, when you're trying to get on and do stuff, when you're professionalism, you professionally you work at it as a job, and things come out of the woodwork to try and stop you from producing. Many of these things, when you analyze them, are nowhere near as bad as they first seem, and there's normally a way around it. And it's rare that there's anything out there that will absolutely stop you in your tracks, short of physical things and illness and that kind of stuff. Outside of that, if it's outside of that, I think it's things that you can manage, and invariably they're never as bad as they first appear.
yeah, I would absolutely agree. And you know, I think the first thing, our first response, I think a lot of times when we see something like this coming down the pipeline, is fear. It's a
Mm,
survival instinct, panic, that kind of thing. Especially if you are heavily invested in YouTube, which I
Yeah.
personally obviously am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the end all and be all, but it is a big part of any kind of audience that I may have gained.
Yeah.
And so it does concern me, you know, and so I look into it. But that's the thing. I think you know, whenever you have that instinct to panic, it's you know, as they say, you know, fear, you know, we fear the unknown, you
Yeah.
know, and I've began to learn my first to make my first instinct might be to panic, but I use that as like a red flag. Okay, I'm panicking. This means I need to educate myself about the
Mm.
situation, and so that's become like my first instinct, and then you know that's a flag and causes me to go learn about it, and so that's
Yeah.
what you do, and it becomes less and less scary because you know, once you start to understand it and know about it, you know,
Yeah.
I've recently done a few different things that I don't usually do. And it was really like weird. Like I wasn't used to certain things. And I'm going to be actually talking about it in a working artist vlog, hopefully this week.
Cool.
But you know, those things were kind of weird and freaky. It was like adulting things, you know,
Mhm.
nothing crazy, just different than I usually do. And you know, what did I do? I immediately educated myself,
Yeah.
and to like a really like I just kept looking into it, looking into it, looking into it until when it came to finally make a decision and to do what I needed to do. Um, you know, it wasn't such a scary thing. I mean, it's still a little nervous, but I knew what I was doing now as opposed
Yeah.
to before, and I don't know. I think that's a really big part whenever you know that kind of panic comes upon you. You know.
Yeah, getting the right information, definitely. But like you, I mean, I don't have as many subscribers as yourself. I'm hopefully it's growing. Um, but what was important to me was not the advertising. I'm not on YouTube to make money from YouTube. I'm on YouTube to get involved with other people, to have an interaction with people, to share my work, and to learn from others. And so having things like comments removed, if you know, if you went the whole kids appropriate, is devastating, because
Mm.
that's what gets you growth. That's what gets you the interaction, and people come backwards and forwards from that. So that when I first read it out, I thought, oh god, here we go. You know, I just got myself started. I'm starting to get a few people to come subscribe and watch the videos and get an interaction and get comments and what have you, and it's all going to get turned off. Because my concern was, according to that list of bright colors and cartoon characters, it's like, well, it's a no-brainer. I'm stuffed. But the more I found out, like you say, educated myself about it, the more I went and looked, the more I found out about it, I realized that it wasn't anywhere near as straightforward as that. And I've decided to continue as normal. And just to be on the safe side, like I say, I just flagged up my Ben 10 videos as for kids because it's got Ben 10 in it. Again, it's not for kids. As I mentioned in my own and Mike, it's just come in. Yeah, it's all simmering down now. Sorry, I just saw a comment from Mike. But yeah, it's like even that the channel, my channel, is focused at obviously at older people. When I say older, far older than like 13-year-olds, because a lot of the time showing work on a particular type of technology, which is, you know, quite expensive, and you know, kids can't go out and afford to buy that. But I'm also the way that I'm talking to people that are either professional themselves and are interested in what I'm doing and hopefully comment back so I can learn from them, or even, you know, other people that are looking to illustrate themselves. So it's quite obviously not for kids, but I also don't swear like a trooper and show lots of nudes. So you know, there is this middle ground, and it does appear that the FTC do appreciate that middle ground, and so, like you say, educating yourself about a situation can make it that much less frightening. And you know, I'm talking about this specific thing, but like you were saying, there's so many things that can come at you from left field, and just finding out more about them, and not panicking, and focusing on, as we were saying earlier, focusing on what you want to get out of the creative process and getting on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's good to have discussion too, with
Mm,
people. Ground yourself. You have trusted friends that you can chat back and forth. I mean, it's been great having the Discord open and being able to talk to different people. Mike Emirates, who's in the chat now, and Shell Presto has been involved with the conversation, and some other people, Bad Ham Comics, I think, and some other people in the Discord. And it's been really good to just kind of hash it out and know
mm,
that you're among friends, and things like that. Um, and to share information that each of you is finding and perspective that each of you is
yeah,
finding. It's certainly been helpful. Um, and so I think that's part of it too. Stay connected to the community. Don't
yeah.
like isolate yourself or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that all of what's going on at the moment, the conversations we're having, it underpins the whole thing that you put together with the Discord server and my decision personally to get involved in YouTube and try and seek out other people that are doing similar things to myself, so that you've got a group of people that you can speak to. I mean, we're spread out all across the world, and yet we talk to each other and we swap ideas and swap techniques and what have you. And it's really important. It's what the internet was made for.
Mm,
It's what it's really good about the internet. Learning, being able to interconnect with people that you would never meet otherwise, and that's a really good thing. I think I see a couple of comments there, like Sideburns. You're right. Yeah, YouTube are the bad guys in this. I think personally, because they were the people that were playing with data and they shouldn't have been when they said that everything was cool. So the FTC are just doing what they should be doing, and I don't believe they're after everybody. If you watch the whole of the press video that they did, you can see that they're not. Obviously the thing that comes out is the shooting fish in a barrel comment, which is a bit scary. But then on top of that, there's like I say, there's this equation they go through as to how much money you earn, and if they do come after you, and how much money was earned on a video, and if you haven't earned any money on a video, then they can't fine you. Basically, I reiterate, I'm not a legal professional, but this is just what I'm kind of seeing. And the other thing is, just in general, that there's this view that there is a middle ground for content that is okay to be watched by kids, as in family content, but is not directed at kids. And this is basically what we are, what your smaller channels are, especially the arts and crafts channels that are drawing or animating or whatever, showing their techniques, talking about their work, but not swearing like troopers throughout the whole thing. That's the kind of channels we are. And I can't see a way that I can't see a reason for people to come after people like us. It's just a personal opinion. So and also your focus on creativity and art, and much like the much like like we're talking about today, things come at you from all kinds of places. You never quite know what's going to happen next, and underpinning the Discord server and the whole community we have, it's keeping a focus on the creative process that you're involved in. That's why we're all here talking to each other, and that can help you. It can help you through these surprises or disasters that befall you. It's a constant in your life, and it's a focus and a drive for you to move forward. And it can help you out of a hole. It can heal you when you're down. You just got to. It sounds very trite to say, "Oh, just keep going." There are, like I said, I lost people, and I had a few days, introvertly thinking about them, and then I had to get on because I had to pay bills. But just the whole process of, outside of me having to pay bills, having the process of me, being creative, doing the work and it is something that I love. It was a healing time. So yeah, it can really help just to get back on the horse and get on and do it.
Yeah. I think they even with if you're not in a creative field, I've heard people give the advice. Say somebody close to you dies or something. Yeah, have your grieving process for sure, but at some point, I think it's always good, even if you don't love your job. It's kind of good to get back into that routine and get
Yeah.
back into kind of real life and stabilize yourself, and instead of hiding away somewhere and freaking out because there's something stabilizing about just that process.
Yeah, I mean, outside of us being creatives, the discipline and the routine of work of being productive is a really good thing for everybody.
Mm.
That's why,
And
God damn it, we can't let the robots take over.
yeah. I did want to comment a little bit on something that Sideburn said. He and this isn't to pick on him at all, because I feel like there is definitely something to that about YouTube is kind of the bad guys, and in some ways it kind of is true. Like that, if there's a bad guy in this situation, they're kind of they're the ones who kind of did something wrong. But to me, I feel like the whole COPPA thing. I mean, the internet is still kind of it's starting to mature, I guess, but it's been the Wild West for most of the time it's been around, and things are starting to get more under control. Things are starting to mature. Regulations are starting to come about. The same thing kind of probably happened with radio and TV, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And yes, they need to be responsible with kids programming and things like that. But there weren't rules at one point, and then there were rules, and at another point, and they're a business trying to do the things that businesses do, basically, and they're just trying to do what they do. So the thing is yes, their kind of rules kind of came about, but they weren't being enforced yet. And I can even talk from experience. Recently my job, was bought by another company, and so we kind of merged two companies together, and it was like, okay, we're going to take the good from each side and try to merge it and make something even better. At least that's what they say. And I mean, it actually has seemed to work out pretty decent so far, at least in my opinion. And but the thing is there's certain ways I do things that I've been doing things for 12 years. And they do them differently. And nobody ever really said you must do it this way now and not the way you've been doing it for 12 years. So when there's something that comes like that, I just still do it the way I normally do it until somebody says, hey, we really want you to do it this way now,
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I feel like almost with YouTube. It's like, and Google, it's like, yeah, they weren't doing it what they were supposed to do, but also they're just starting to enforce these rules that they put in place a while ago. And this was kind of, I feel like more than anything, this was the FTC and COPA's way of saying, all right, we're making a stand here and we have to make it loudly. And YouTube is, the worst ones at this point, kind of crossing the boundaries, and, and they got heavily fined for it. So they're doing their time, kind of thing, but are they demons? Are they horrible? I don't know.
no. YouTube are a business, and that's why it's been difficult for creators to understand exactly what's going on, because YouTube are just desperately trying to get themselves in a position where they can't get fined again, because they're a business. That's what they do. They don't want to get fined. They want to make money, not hand it out. So they have kind of moved it along to the creators, the people with channels, the channel holders. But at the same time, the FTC has also said that the channel holders have some responsibility in this. So you can't kind of get away from that aspect of it. However, the way that YouTube have kind of displayed it, the way they've kind of gotten it across to everybody, is a little bit of a blunt edge, if you like.
Mhm.
It's not as nuanced as the FTC rulings are, and it's not as nuanced as the way the FTC see the problem.
Yeah.
The FTC actually have in their rulings, or in the law, a whole space for family friendly content that is not directed at kids and is not directed at adults. But you don't see that in the way those rulings have been passed through YouTube. So if you go and, like you say, if you go and educate yourself, you go and find out and see what these things are, you can actually see that it's not quite as straightforward as, oh my God, I've got a cartoon character, I'm animating something and my thumbnails are bright, I'm going to get sued. It doesn't work that. It's not going to be like that. There's some comments as well that are talking about something about it being a sideburns, it being a Herculean task, because the FTC are going to run through physically. They're going to use people to go and look. So they're going to be targeting certain channels. They're not going to be looking for your average person that might be doing an arts and crafts channel. That's not the kind of person they're going to be looking for and trying to take down. So I think the whole thing is far more nuanced. And obviously, as we were saying earlier, the ruling came out, the new rules came out, and everybody screamed on the internet. And it became a bit of a panic. And I just don't think it's quite as it's not quite as blunt as it was first described. And I also think that there will be, apparently there have been, I don't know whether it's worthwhile me doing this because I'm a British citizen rather than an American, but there are places that you can go. There's you can make comments to the FTC directly about the ruling and about how you feel it's going to affect YouTube channel owners and what have you. And I think it's very worthwhile doing that. And it seems that it will have an effect. They do read them, and hopefully, if nothing else, they'll be able to clarify the nuances that surround things like the middle ground of family content rather than kids-directed content.
Yeah.
Something else that Mike said, I don't know if you were going to bring him up or not, but he was talking about the other subject, or the related subject of, getting back on. I just really liked his comments there. They were really good.
Let's see.
I like his mantra.
I'm not sure which one you're talking
about.
Mike, I see.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Let's see. My mantra is get to work. Feeling sad, get to work. Feeling overwhelmed, get to work. Feeling like you can't get to work, get to work.
Work meaning being productive, making art, comics, music, whatever. Which is, I just think that's great. Really, really good. Yeah. That's the way it should be. It's just like you want to produce, you want to leave something behind, you want to make a mark. And I don't mean in a self in a selfish way, like it's all about me, I want to be remembered. It's not about that. It's just about leaving something behind. If you can tell a story that inspires someone, we've talked about this about comics before. If you can tell a story that will inspire someone, if you can do something in YouTube where somebody will look at it and think that's an inspiration, I'll go and do something. That's what it's all about. Inspiring each other, whether teaching your kids, inspiring your kids, or inspiring other people, friends, people halfway across the world that you've never met that are watching a video. And if they hear something you say or look at something you've drawn and go, yeah, I'm going to go do something, that's a great thing. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a good thing. And yeah, I agree with Mike's sentiment, get to work and stuff. And that was a couple of things I actually did want to bring up too, is when something like this happens, it's really important to know what your vision is, to know who you are, to know what you bring to the table, to know what your real, focus is. YouTube is a big deal to me, but it's not the end all and be all.
No.
The thing that I bring to the table, and what I think is even more important than YouTube, is making the stories that I want to make and getting them out there. YouTube is just a vehicle to help me to get them out further than I can get if I didn't have YouTube.
Yeah, it's about extending reach. Yeah,
exactly. So, but what do I, if all of a sudden YouTube destroys my channel, I mean, I would be very unhappy if they fined me $40,000 or more. But if they told me I couldn't have a channel anymore, that doesn't mean I can't make comics. That doesn't mean I can't do videos on Facebook, Instagram, all these other places, or do a podcast, or all these other things.
exactly.
There's still other ways to get the word out. There's people who don't do any of that stuff and still have successful Kickstarters and crowdfunders and things like that. This isn't the only thing. And what I bring to the table personally is what I bring to a story, the sensibilities, the things that people like, or that, I like. And the same with Russ. He brings a certain sensibility to the things he does, and nobody can do a comic story the way Russ can, or I can, or Mike Emirates, or Sideburns, or any of us. We all have our own voice, and nobody can take that away from us.
No, that's great. That's a great way of putting it. That's a really good way of putting it.
So, that's just to encourage people, that, because the thing is social media sites will come and go. I don't know. It's hard to imagine, things like Facebook or YouTube or some of the biggest ones, going down. There's always rumors of DC Comics, or Marvel Comics going down. I mean, Marvel Comics basically did go down, but they're still afloat, at one point, and I've heard rumors about DC Comics, going down. But I mean, can you really sink Superman and Batman? I don't know. I'd be surprised if I saw that actually happen. I think they'd still find a way to keep them going, but there's always these kind of things, but it doesn't need to stop everything.
No, that you're right. It's all about reach. Something that I've found since I started drawing professionally in 2010. Prior to that, in the mid 90s, I'd been using snail mail and sending stuff to Marvel, and they took me on as a penciler, or they put me on the list, as it were, and passed me around the editors. I didn't get any work. It's not the way. It just didn't work out for me. I think it was the right thing. I think it worked out great for me in the end. But then I came to drawing professionally in 2010. I'd had a career in all kinds of other things, including coding and internet stuff. And so the first port of call for me was to go to the internet and see how I could branch out and find other people, spread my work about, show my website. And it's changed so much in 10 years. It's unbelievable how much it's changed. And in some ways, especially from comic book perspective, there's so many people out there, there's so many artists out there. It's a double-edged sword, because it's great to get your work out there. It's easily accessible. You can get to all kinds of people across the planet, but there's so many of us out there. So, you've got to kind of find the way through the internet, as it were, to make it your shop window. And YouTube is a great way to reach out to people, because it makes it more personable. It's not just the image. It's not just your picture. They're looking at stuff on your website, stuff that you've produced, and then they can actually see you in the flesh, via a screen, as it were, and see how you approach talking to other people, how you approach interacting with other people. And that can make a big difference, especially as we move forward into what now I believe will be the Wild West again of comic book publishing, because it all seems to be thrown up in the air. I think the personal touch, I think being able to see people, being able to interact with creators is the next thing. It's what people will be driven to buy books with. And as much as I go from the, I believe that you should separate art and artist. Okay, if you really really like a book, or you really really like a particular piece of art, writing, whatever it is, you can't say I'm not going to buy that, or I'm not going to consume that because I don't like the person that's written it. The person that's written it might be a complete asshole, okay, but they still produce amazing stuff. Okay. I'm sure there's plenty of artists and writers in the past that you just wouldn't have wanted to spend time with. You wouldn't have wanted to have a beer with. There's plenty of people in films and TV that I can guarantee you I'd end up knocking out if I met them personally in a pub, because they just annoy the hell out of me. But it doesn't mean I don't want to watch them, create. Doesn't mean I don't want to watch them perform. So art and artist, I think, should be separated. But as far as consumption is concerned, but there is absolutely a reason to be the artist or the creator that not only produces great stuff, but is also approachable. Is also it adds to the consumption of that creative product. It just certainly does. If you can walk up to someone, say a convention, and you've got a book and you want them to sign it, and they stand and they sit and talk with you for a few minutes about art or about their work or about what you're doing, you think, wow, that's great. And you are more likely to buy that book, the next book that they produce, or the next piece of art they produce, or the next track that they produce. You're more likely to, because you have a personal connection. And that's the great thing about things like YouTube and the interconnectivity of the internet. As long as you behave yourself and you're decent to people and respectful of people, then there's no reason why it can't help you distribute your work to even to an even wider audience. And my personal perspective is you should always be respectful. There are no toxic fans, in my personal view. I've made a video about this in the past. Fans have a right, or readers or consumers of your work have a total right, if they've bought into it financially or whatever, they're reading or consuming your work, they have a right to have an opinion on it. And as long as they're not rude and abusive to you, they have a right to say, I don't like this, or I didn't like the way you took that character, or that character means something to me. Why have you done that? Yeah. And you can say, oh, well, I did it for this reason. I'm sorry you don't like it, but stick around. Perhaps it'll work for you later on. There are no toxic fans, because they're all consuming your work or the work of whoever they're a fan of. So, no, I don't know where this came from. I don't know why I veered off this way, but it's oh, that's right. Yeah. The social media and YouTube, it's reach. It's about reaching out to people and them feeling like they have something in the game, that they've kind of connected with you as a creator, and so it makes them want your work even more. But respect is really important in that perspective. You're right, Sideburns. Never meet your heroes. I have met a couple of them, and I was disappointed, but I still buy their work because the work's so good. That being said, I have met a few, and they were rather nice people, so I was even happier. So.
Yeah, I had an experience where I met one of the people who I looked up to, and I barely met them, and I wasn't too happy with that interaction, and it did actually put a little bit of a stain on the way I felt,
Yeah.
But the thing is people can be jerks and people can be really cool depending on the context of where and when you meet them or whatever. I've been a jerk myself at times,
Yeah, me too.
And I've been a cool person too. So, it's hard to say, but yeah, it is sad when you do meet somebody and it's like, oh, I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth about that person. That really sucks.
But that's the terrible thing about things like Twitter. And as we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, some creators coming out, and especially some very prolific creators coming out and being hideous online, and that's not good. And you know, they might actually be really nice people, and you know, somebody might just have a bad day. That's the great thing about when you were going to conventions. You could be in a line, you turn up, and if somebody signed a book for you, a piece of art for you, and then they didn't want to talk to you, and you could think, oh, maybe they're just having a bad day. You know, give people a second chance.
Yeah.
But it is difficult when people are constantly pumping out bile on Twitter, and you think, please just be quiet, just stop it. And I just don't get involved in any of that. I post pictures. I post pictures that I draw and pictures that I love, and occasionally I'll voice some support for people who I think are doing great work, and that's it. That's where I stop. It's like, you know, I've got inner thought processes and ideas, and they're for me. They're not for everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I had that recently. There's a certain creator that I really look up to as far as art wise, and they constantly put out a lot of things on Twitter that I'm just like roll my eyes at. Not that I even disagree sometimes, but just the way they go about things and stuff. But recently they put out a tweet that was like, I don't say this too often, but I really appreciate, you know, you guys, like all the fans and people who helped. And I was like, repost, you know, I'm like, I like that, you know, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
But you know, it's people are crazy, and yes. they let the internet go to their head and give them more power than they like we should have.
No, definitely. I mean, people, you know, keyboard warrior is the term, but so many people just sit down and tap something out, and you think, just no, think twice before you put that out. Just stop it. Stop. Just enjoy life, enjoy people, respect people, and if they don't agree with you, then, you know, agree to disagree. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, life is quite tricky and hard at the best of times. Like we're talking about, having things thrown at you from one side or another, and continuing to be creative and continue to work. Life is hard enough as it is without creating more problems. Well, why? I don't understand how anybody has got the time to sit in front of Twitter and tap. I mean, I type it so slowly, it's ridiculous. The idea of having a Twitter argument with someone is like, why would I waste that energy? Just stop. I could be drawing. Damn it, I could be drinking alcohol. Why would I want to do that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I think what happens, because it's happened to me for sure, is, you know, you see something and it's like a hook, and like you're like, okay, I'll just maybe throw a little response in, and then somebody responds to that, and then it starts to go out of control. You know, it's easy to get kind of caught in that, and that's a big reason why I avoid at all costs. I avoid my Facebook feed, you know, because I will go down that road and it'll be like 45 minutes later, and I'll be like, what am I doing? Like, why did I spend all this time here?
It's like shouting into the void.
Yeah.
Screaming into the void. This is what I think. No one's listening. And if they do listen, if they do read what you've got to post, they're only going to come back here with that. You're never going to convince anybody on the internet of your view against their view.
Yeah.
Just the only way you can expect anyone to kind of curb their opinion is if you have a proper conversation with them, nice, level-headed, gentle conversation where you can have an interaction of ideas, and then maybe you could make somebody think closer to the way that you think. Screaming in caps on a Facebook poster, people, it's not going to get anyone to change their mind. They're just going to scream back at you.
That's why I love what we do so much, and I've talked about this before, but like making comics and writing stories and, you know, all that kind of thing is like, there's a few different aspects that just really, like, I'm not the type of person to get into an argument with people, and if I do, I'll lose. I know I'm not good in that scenario. I'm just not good. Um, but when I make a comic, nobody can argue back.
No, 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 it's great. No, that's the story. Just you like it, don't like it, buy it, don't buy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm with you on that. That's great.
And so I enjoyed that aspect. And I don't know, it's nice to be able to kind of like when you have a conversation with somebody, you can only get like the tip of the iceberg of your thoughts, and there's a lot of misunderstanding happening because they'll take something you said as like, oh, well, he thinks this and he doesn't consider this and this. Well, no, maybe you did consider those things as well, and you do have, it's like, fights about many different, toxic topics, political topics. It's like,
Yeah.
just because somebody has an opinion about something doesn't mean that they're not tender to another aspect of it. Oh, well, this is the exception. I get that. But for the general rule, I kind of think generally this is the best way to go, type of thing.
No, the internet has created tribes. And it's not a good thing. But if you believe one thing, then you're obviously part of a particular group. You can't possibly span several opinions because some opinions, obviously don't work with others as far as certain people are concerned. I like I say, I don't get involved in politics. I would imagine, much like most creatives, I lean a little left. But there are lots of opinions I have, or lots of things that I would agree with that some people wouldn't necessarily consider to be left leaning. But the whole point is you come at it from a perspective of what is my life experience? What have I seen? How can I be compassionate, or how can I try to understand other people's opinions? And then you put that all together, and it feeds your own opinions on a subject. And that's why having level-headed, reasonable, respectful conversations and interaction is so important. And unfortunately, we're losing that a little bit. I'm not a fan of Twitter. I'm on it because it's part of the whole ensemble of the outreach to as many people as possible. But I certainly don't get involved in any of the Twitter arguments. I'm not going to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always up for a conversation. Like I've had conversations with actually Mike here. I've had conversations with him a lot of times where we don't agree, and but we have been friends long enough. We know that we can have a conversation and be okay, even if we disagree, And so I'm always up for a conversation. But even with like my wife, if it's like something where we're going to be at each other's throats, I don't even contribute. And she, she doesn't always get why I'm not talking, but I'm not going to talk unless we're about to, if we can have a conversation, sure. But if not, then I'm not willing to get into that battle, because you're going to say out of emotion that you don't even mean, and I don't want to hurt my wife or something, like I don't want to say things like that, I mean, of course things happen. Everybody's not perfect. Relationships are tricky, but at the same time, I just try to avoid arguments at all costs.
That's right. Easy life. Just there's no need. I mean, you're passionate about something, fine, but there's absolutely no need to give yourself more problems than are already there. Which is what I was saying about people screaming at each other on Twitter. It's like, well, I haven't got the time for that energy, or the energy for it. Sorry, I've got other things to be getting on with. But is that Michael Ingart? Michael Ingart? Michael Ingart. I need to be able to be told how to express that properly.
Sure.
Michael Ingart. Michael Ingart. Anyway, he's absolutely right. The tribes have been around for a long time, and I'm always I'm absolutely in agreement. I'm always up for having my mind changed. If somebody can give me a really good argument at something I don't necessarily. My name is Michael Hing. Okay, Michael Hing. There you go. And I think it's really good if you can have a conversation where somebody makes you appreciate something or understand something that you haven't done previously. So right on, Michael.
Yeah, I really like that. The last part, I like the whole thing, but the last part where he says, "I'm up for having my mind changed." I have very strong beliefs, feelings, opinions, things like that, but those things have changed a lot throughout my life.
Yeah,
And I always, even with my faith, like I still stay to the foundational basic truths of the faith that I believe, being a Christian, that I started when I was, a teenager. But I think of it a lot differently than I used to.
mm,
There's a lot of nuances and things that I've learned, and things that I've become more empathetic to, or more strong about, depending on the different things. Same thing with politics. I was, listening to Rush Limbaugh, and very conservative, right leaning for a while at one point. And I've had people tell me different things, and I've learned a lot of different things and studied, and gotten to a point where it's like, no, I can't. I even took myself out of the conservative, like the way you're registered. I put myself, I think it's independent or whatever, because I actually don't believe in having the two sides. That actually
no,
bothers me. I'm
yeah,
more against that than anything,
yes,
Um,
absolutely, yeah,
so why be registered as a
yeah.
Republican or a Democrat?
And
To me,
I think that's what Robert Oger was saying. It was Mike has agreed with him. Is finding the solution is far more important than
mm,
whether it's a changing of minds. It's what is the solution to a problem, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you change as you go through your life. You it's because of the learning process, because you pick up so many more independent opinions um, and facts along the way. You educate yourself, much like we were saying earlier about how to take away fear is by educating yourself properly. We've got the same problem as far as politics is concerned in this country. We've just got people shouting at each other saying you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and then coming out with as policies that are as far from each other as possible, and neither of them are working. And what annoys people and what has annoyed people is this constant muck throwing between parties or between political ends or extremes. So, for instance, if you apply that to comics, what's gone on recently, last few years with the whole Comicsgate saga and what have you. Um, so, for instance, on Twitter, I follow several people, lots of different people. In fact, one of them would be Ethan Van Sciver. Okay, but I also follow lots of artists from what would be suggested as the other side of the line. Oh my God. And the reason that I follow them all is because I want to see all the opinions. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in the fight, but I want to see what's going on. I want to understand the environment that I'm within. And it's the same with politics as well. You want to understand or at least appreciate what the arguments are from both sides of the line. Um, and that means that the problem we've got at the moment, which is back to what we were talking about with tribalism, is no, tribalism hasn't suddenly been invented by the internet. But what is going on at the moment, and it seems to be going on across at least the Western world, is guilt by association. So if I listen to someone, well, I'm obviously in 100% agreement with them, and I must believe everything they believe. No, I want to take in an opinion. I want to take in the whole gamut of what's going on so that I can form an opinion for myself. And it's the same with what you were saying about, going through your life and picking up experience and educating yourself. And, from a religious perspective, I was quite sort of anti when I was younger. And I see myself far more spiritually nuanced now as I've gotten older. And it's literally just life experience that you take stuff in along the way. And hopefully it makes you a calmer, more approachable person so that you can have, like we were talking about, so you can have those discussions with people and find the solutions. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work so
yeah,
well with our politicians. Never mind.
yeah. And I know we've kind of veered way off the topic, but that's okay. Like it's Sunday, I'm chilling, you know.
Well, I think with the theme of what we've been talking about, whether it be about copper, whether it be about things coming in to disturb our lives or our creative process, whether it's the arguments we see online, whether it's the disparate opinions that people want to make you part of a group that you're not happy about being. The whole thing that underlies all of that is education. Educating yourself about the environment, about the facts, about the things that are going on in your life, and using that to make the fear subside. Because the more you educate yourself about everything around you, the more confident you become and the better you are at getting on with your life and also the creative process, just getting on with it. So I think that's the underpin of it, of everything, educating yourself about everything you can, being open-minded. And as artists, as creators, we should all be open-minded, whether that be to a new style, whether that be to something we've never tried, or whether that be to someone's opinion.
Absolutely. And also one thing too that I've, again, things that I learned growing older and going through these processes and stuff is, when I start to feel either fear or like some of these extreme emotions like anger or, the tribalism, like kind of some of that stuff that can be on the more negative side, I have to also realize that there's a lot of, kind of powers at play that are wanting to kind of manipulate situations. And, they sometimes they want us to be, you think about like, political elections and stuff, they kind of want you to be on edge. They want you to get fired up about certain things, and they want to divide people so that they can make a clear present a clear choice,
Yeah.
But things are much more nuanced and stuff. So I don't give into like that. I'm starting to realize that when I start to feel those emotions, I'm realizing I'm being manipulated right now. I don't want to be that. And like you said, education can calm all that.
Yeah, I read and I go out and find out stuff, but I very rarely watch the news because it's all part of the same. I don't want to get conspiratorial about this because I don't think that way. But it's definitely a matter of, the mainstream, whether that be, two political parties instead of 3 or 4, or the mainstream as in the mainstream media. They all want to drive you down a particular path because it makes the general public far easier to deal with. God forbid that we should all end up with our own ideas and think for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting, and I think that that's one thing I try to do with this channel. Is to have these conversations and discussions instead of having these kind of riots that maybe you see. And also I love what you said about like being subscribed to to Ethan Van Sciver, but then also being subscribed to what's that that lady who he talks about a lot. I can't.
I'm awful with names. I know who you're talking about.
Simone? Is that the right?
Gail Simone. Yeah, I'm
like I'm
subscribed to Gail.
I mean, I think I'm still subscribed to her because with these blockchains, who knows? Maybe I'm not anymore. But I like to see both sides as well, and that's the problem. That's one of the biggest problems, is we all want to say our thing and shout and have our opinion, but nobody wants to listen, and that's what this channel is about, having the discussion, listening to the different sides. I don't know. To me, that's really important, and I hope that I can encourage that kind of reaction to be more prevalent in
Mhm.
my little circle of influence, you know, whatever
Yeah,
that.
no, definitely. I was block botted the other day, a couple of weeks ago. Trying to remember who it is. Al Ewing. That's it. There you go. He was writing Hulk, wasn't he? Which I've bought a couple of books of. And so I was interested. So I followed him because I was interested in the books and stuff. He does do a lot of political rants or seemingly political, and I just ignore it because I'm only interested in books and what have you. And I was blocked, and I kind of posted. That was at that moment I thought, sod this. This is just not right. So I tweeted him and said, "Why the hell am I?" I tweeted Marvel as well, and said, "Why the hell am I blocked? What have I done? You know, what? How have I been rude or what have you?" And a friend of mine, this sounds very elitist, but a friend of mine who has worked with Al and worked with Marvel, basically tweeted Al and said, "Look, you know, take him off your block list. This is such and such," which he did, and said sorry for it. And that was cool. That was fine. But then some other people jumped in who had been following me and said, "Oh, well, it's all right for you, isn't it? You just like your friend goes and has a word with Al, and now you've not been blocked." I've been reading books for years, and I've been blocked by Al. At which point, I had to apologize for the fact that I'd been unblocked. So I didn't apologize. I said, "Look, you know, this is what it is. I'm really sorry that you've been blocked. I just happen to know X. I just come on here and I support people and I show my own work." And they actually came back and went, "Yeah, sure, no problem. Sorry, you know, it's not your problem." But you do think, well, why are you doing all this? Well, why does it get to that point that people feel the need to like block massive amounts of people in swathes that, you know, if someone comes onto your channel or onto your Facebook or onto your Twitter or whatever, remember, these things aren't real. Okay, they're not real life. All right. But if they come on there and you don't like them, then just mute them or just block them. Why do you have to block thousands of people? It just seems ridiculous just because they happen to follow somebody else that you don't like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people need to have a range of opinions. So, but saying all that, as this is shot off to the other side. I went to a comic book shop yesterday, and unfortunately, my local comic book shop does not stock Alterna, which I'm very upset about. I've been looking around to try and get anything I've got from Alterna so far. I've got online, but do you know what they did have on the shelves? Lady Death,
Oh,
which is the Kickstarter, isn't it? That's like, but so where did they get those books from? So they didn't have a publisher on their shelves, but they had kickstarted books. Bearing in mind, I'm in the UK,
yeah.
and you know these are US books. So did they actually? Is it a case of this? You know, Lady Death is Lady Death, isn't it? Yeah. This Kickstarter is so. This book is so well loved and so popular that a Kickstarter has managed to get its books into a shop in the UK. And that's the Wild West. That's what we were talking about earlier. That's things are changing. Things are definitely changing. I just hope comic shops stick around, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because
I
it's
mean,
horrible, the idea of not having them.
I'm certainly a fan of comic shops, and I hope they stick around as well. But you know, who knows? Well, I think they will. I don't think there's any reason why they would 100% go away. There's always going to be people wanting that kind of thing. Whether they're, you know, the industry takes a different shape or not, I don't know. Only time will tell, I guess. But yeah, I totally agree. Things are changing, and you know, we just, again, thinking about this FTP, to bring it kind of back in the COPA, you know, that's the thing too, is things could go away. YouTube could go away. All kinds of things could go away, and we need to be adaptable, you know, to
definitely.
things, you know, and just because YouTube goes away doesn't mean there's no way you can promote your thing, you know.
I think somebody mentioned BitChute in the chat. I actually have a BitChute channel. I've only got 41 subscribers on it. But funnily enough, the videos, the actual videos get quite a few views. So it's what I do is I got the channel, and apparently it completely backs up all your videos. So when you put a video out on YouTube, it automatically goes to BitChute within a couple of days or whatever. So I did that. I went and had a look at some different places on the internet. There's MeWe, which is like a Facebook thing, but I got there and I didn't quite like a lot of the conversation that was going on. And also Gab as well. When I heard about Gab, I thought, oh, Gab, great. You know, it's like it's something different from Twitter, but the same. And then people say, oh, you can't go to Gab. You're obviously a Nazi if you go to Gab. And I'm like, no, keep your mind open. But actually, I got there and it wasn't a particularly pleasant place to be. I must be honest. So I haven't used it much at all. But again, this whole idea that just because you go to a platform, you must be a certain kind of individual is hideous. But like I say, saying that, I don't go there very often anymore. But BitChute is totally open-ended, and it's definitely worth, I think, having a BitChute channel just so that you can back up the channel you've got on YouTube, so that if YouTube did, for some reason, spontaneously combust, at least you've got somewhere where you've got your videos up. So.
Absolutely. And I've heard that BitChute being touted as kind of possibly the new YouTube or something, and I just haven't looked into it yet. But yeah, I mean, I'm always down. Again, being adaptable. There's a million different ways to do it. And before the internet, people did it too. So yeah, I think we've rounded on this topic pretty well here.
It's been a good chat.
Absolutely. So I appreciate everybody in the chat. Thanks for hanging out. We had a good time, going back and forth with that. Russ, once again, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me here on YouTube. I am Comic Book Black Belt, and you can find me on my websites, russleach.com and comicbookblackbelt.com, and my new book next year, which is onlydeathcansaveus.com, and all of those have a link to my email subscription list, which please give that your email address, and I can let you into all the information about the book in the new year.
Awesome. I definitely recommend that. I can't wait to see more from that book and to read it when it comes out.
I have a preview coming soon, actually.
So. Awesome. And you guys know where you can find me, donkeyjawprojects.com and Marsh Comics on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And that's about it. We're not going to dive off the cliff yet here with YouTube. So. Other than that, we will talk to you next time, and thanks for watching.
Thanks. See you.